like it, H-STEP. And the idea of H-STEP is to bring together two important goals. So one is PhD students in the humanities have been rightly interested, and we as faculty, I think, have not done as much to encourage the exploration of multiple career paths. The realities of job placement in academia are sobering, but it's also true that lots of students in the course of graduate school decide that a academic university job is not their preferred goal. But most people who enter into PhD programs love teaching. So we wanted to really push on the idea that there is a marriage to be made here. So one thing is thinking about the PhD in the humanities. The second piece of this is that we have a world-class education teacher training program at Stanford, and there is a need for teacher training and the professionalization of K-12 teaching. It's a shame in the United States that teaching has been deprofessionalized and is continually deprofessionalized as a low-status profession. And when you look at our counterparts around the world who are successful in education, you actually see that they take teacher training and teaching seriously. Right before I came here, I read the story of so Finland is often the country that people look at because it has such amazing teaching outcomes. It's also a country where teaching is very valued as a profession, and where lots of people with advanced degrees go into teaching, and where there's also a lot of competition to go into teaching. And so I read the former president of Finland started out in a teacher training program, wound up teaching in junior high school for about 10 years, then became a diplomat, and then became president of Finland. So anyway, here's another career path. So we're, because of this obvious, marriage between the needs of our own PhD students and the importance of the professionalization of teaching, and that we have a great program, we decided to launch this new program called H-STEP, in which we will help PhD students who are interested in exploring the teaching option, particularly high school teaching, develop a path in which they can have success doing that. And part of the path will be this winter. Pam Grossman and Jennifer Summit are teaching a new course, a PhD level course, exactly for PhD students in the humanities who are interested in high school teaching. So that will happen this winter. We're partnering with the Haas Center to think about internships for those of you with interest in this area to actually get experience working with young people, which is really important. And then the school will fund up to 6 students a year who are admitted to STEP. Not that we're assuming we'll always have 6 students who are admitted to STEP, but the school will fund it so it is of no cost to the PhD students, but we will fund it if you finish your PhDs in a timely way. So this is not meant to be, you can always get off track and not to finish the PhD and apply to STEP, but this is actually a program to take our PhDs and connect them to high school teaching. So anyway, I'm really happy you're here. Eamonn is going to say a few words about STEP, and then we have some panelists who will talk about high school teaching and STEP.
Thanks, Debra. So I'm Eamonn Callan. I'm the Associate Dean for Student Services in the Graduate School of Education. Among the things I do in that capacity is I provide administrative oversight for our admission process. So, and that includes admission to our PhD program as well as admission to STEP. And one of the things I frequently say to Rachel, I think I say it just about every year, is when I look at the applicants to our PhD program, and our PhD program happens to be the most competitive program in North America, and the applicants to our STEP program, it's really very hard to discriminate between, if I'm I'm looking at the successful applicants who are offered admission. Very hard to distinguish academically between the ones who are going into the PhD program and the ones who are going into the STEP program. It really is a remarkable program in the quality of the applicants that it attracts and in the quality of the pre-service training that it provides. And a lot of the quality of that training has to do with Rachel Lotan. Rachel was hired in 1999 to be director of STEP Secondary, and that was a big year for the School of Education because that was the year they hired me as well. So really a bumper crop of faculty that year. Rachel, alas, is going to retire, so she will not be here when all of you come on board. That said, we're going to find a worthy successor. But anyhow, you do at least have the pleasure of meeting her tonight and listening to her, and she will have wise things to say.
Thank you. So before I start, let me introduce two of our graduates. Mylen is teaching Spanish at Gateway High School in the city, and she graduated from STEP in 2008. 12, sorry. You're right. That's the thing that I can. Okay. After 15 years, they all blend together. She came to STEP with some experience teaching, but mostly with an outstanding undergraduate degree in education, and is really has the profile of what we are so proud of as the future leader that STEP prepares. And Danny Bliss is a graduate of Stanford, finished his undergraduate degree here at Stanford in history. And one of the questions that I'm actually going to ask him is about the transition from undergraduate to graduate school, to STEP in particular. And I think Danny has a story to tell about that. Danny teaches at Sequoia High School, which was his first job. He got hired right out of STEP. I also have to add that he met his future wife in STEP. And we have lots of couples like that. STEP gets the first baby, the firstborn. And Nikki's also his third teacher, so which is kind of cool. So before I start talking, let me ask you first. What do you know about STEP, about the Teacher Education Program? What do you know, and what are some of the things that you would like to know specifically? Don't be shy. You have a question on the tip of your tongue.
Me?
Yes.
I was saying not much.
Not much? So what would you like to know?
More about the technicalities of the programs and the application process, and then hearing feedback from people who are actually teaching right now. What it's like, whether it's met their expectations.
Okay. Other questions? Yeah?
I know it's a very intense experience, having had some friends who did it last year. They were going to half moon day every day, very early in the morning.
Yes.
It's intense.
Yes.
What kind of training is offered in terms of what kind of educator? Is it for like an inner city school or is it for a private high school?
Okay. So, any other questions? So it seems to me that maybe before we talk about the admissions, the nitty-gritty of the admissions, let me give you kind of an overview a little bit of what the program is about, what the curriculum is about, okay? And what a day in the life of we call them steppies, and that's a term of endearment. Although some people don't like it because they feel it's too touchy-feely, but we like to call them steppies. What a day in the life of a steppy might look like. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about that. I always start by emphasizing what Eamonn just said, that the best thing about STEP are the students. The students, the teacher candidates in STEP are, as Eamonn said, very accomplished. When we look at, data, when we look at the average GPAs, at the average GREs, they're very comparable, certainly to the other master's programs in the School of Education and to the PhDs in the School of Education. As a matter of fact, when we sit in the admissions meeting in our area, in the School of Education, sometimes professors look at the files of the STEP candidates and they say, oh, could we have them in the PhD program? And I say, nope. Really, they are very accomplished academically. A diverse group of folks, both in their demographic background. We have a considerable proportion of students of color, students who are first generation college in their families, very different range of socioeconomic backgrounds, and folks with a range of experiences. So currently in STEP, we have 3 ex-lawyers. We have 1 student who was in the PhD program in the sciences. Last year, we had a graduate of the chemistry department who started STEP a week after getting her PhD in chemistry and hasn't stopped smiling since. We have a range of, from undergraduates, about maybe 10% Stanford undergrads, about here, to folks who have been out in the workforce 5 to 6 years, to, as I say, second career people, sometimes engineers, sometimes venture capitalists. We've had in STEP, we had a physician once who came and said that STEP was more intense than med school. So there is a good range, which I appreciate because it makes for very, very rich conversations. And there are lots of conversations in STEP. So that's the students. It is very unusual for a teacher preparation program, particularly at a research university like Stanford, to have tenured professors teach in the program, professors who are nationally and internationally leading the field in the teaching of mathematics, the teaching of English, the teaching of history, teaching of science. There's new frameworks coming out, and Jonathan Osborne is one of the authors and also teaches in STEP, both elementary and secondary. Very unusual for teacher preparation programs in a place like Stanford, which really emphasizes, I think, the fact that the program is important to not only to the School of Education and has a particular place in the School of Education, but also to the university. And that the university prides itself on having a teacher preparation program that serves as a demonstration site for other teacher preparation programs. The third hallmark that I would say is very extensive clinical experience. So we start in the summer. It's a 12-month program, June to June. We start in the summer, 1 week after graduation, and we have about 3 days of a week of orientation, about 3 days that we spend together building the cohort. The cohort is a very important part. Being part of this cohort is a very important hallmark of STEM. I see you nod. So on Thursday of the first week, the candidates meet their first co-opting teacher, who they're going to spend with 4 weeks in the summer at a summer school. So within the second week of the program, you already work with kids. The summer school happens at one school, all the secondary, all the elementary at another school. 4 weeks of working in teams of STEP candidates with a co-opting teacher. 5 days a week in the morning at the site in classrooms, starting to find out what it means to work with individual kids, small group of kids, and planning with a master teacher and with a colleague. So that's in the summer. The clinical placements in the classrooms happen from the first day that school starts, which in the area here is mid-August, to the last day of the school year. So one of the intensities of the program that you commented about is the fact that you're accountable both to, or the each candidates are accountable both to the school calendar and the Stanford calendar. And the twain rarely overlap as far as spring breaks and whatever are concerned. But in STEP secondary, about 20 hours a week on the average are spent in the placements in the schools. And then the candidates come in the afternoons to take the courses at the university. It is a master's degree that people get, so it is academically rigorous. And I think, though, that the specific strength of the way that the research and the scholarship and the clinical practice are connected. I'm doing this because my image is actually the double helix of the DNA of teacher preparation is the weaving together of theory and practice. That you take coursework, but really, I think you would be hard-pressed completing an assignment for the university if you're not in a placement in a school and actually in contact with the youngsters and actually being in the classroom doing stuff. Am I right? Yes. Okay. All right. So the strong connection between the scholarship that is so important for us and that our professors and instructors bring to STEM, being very closely linked to the practice, to the clinical experience is another hallmark. We work very closely with schools, actually forming some partnerships with some of the schools in the Bay Area. We place anywhere from San Francisco to San Jose. But just to give you an example, Danny at Sequoia High School, that school now has 23 STEP graduates teaching there just from the 15 years that I've been director. I think there are a little bit before that. And the principal, the current principal, Bonnie Hansen, said that her strategy to reform the high school is just to hire STEP graduates. So, you know, which is awesome. I think it greatly contributes to some of the reform efforts that the schools engage in. The STEP graduates who find each other are a force to be reckoned with in those places, to say the least, right? Mylen teaches now at Gateway High School, which is one of our partner schools, which also has quite a few STEP graduates. We don't have student teachers there this year just because their schedule doesn't work so well, but we've always had student teachers. The principal who was at that school is a STEP graduate. It's a school with a strong culture. It's a charter school in the city. So we place anywhere from comprehensive high schools on the peninsula to charter schools in the city on the peninsula, San Jose, so on and so forth. So that kind of joint work with the schools is another important part of the work in STEP. And finally, I think that STEP's mission and vision and goal is to produce teacher leaders who work and teach for equity and excellence. Not either or, but and. And so as we provide opportunities for them to learn how to build equitable classrooms and equitable schools, in STEP we try to practice what we preach and have as progressive pedagogy as we can, and try to model and practice what we actually would like to see them then go and do out in the field. So we try to really model it. We see ourselves, you know, we have anywhere between 65, 70, this year is the biggest cohort that I have had in my 15 years, 76 students in 5 subject areas, mathematics, English, history, social science, science, and world languages. You know, the numbers are not going to shatter the world, so to speak. We're not going to close the teacher shortage. But what we are doing, I think, is demonstrate to the world that how principles of powerful teacher education are instantiated, how they're operationalized here at Stanford, and what it takes to produce the kind of teachers that we have. So that's STEP. What does it take to apply? What we look at is, first and foremost, do you like to have kids around you? Teenagers, not kids. Everybody likes, you know, little. Yeah. See my grandkids now. I had a book club of my granddaughters. Sorry that I digress. And there were 4 giggling 9-year-olds, and I said, it always reminds me why I chose to teach high school. But so first and foremost, you know, do you really enjoy that? Do you like talking to young people? Do you feel that you want to make a difference in their lives? And then of course, is that going to be made through your subject area? Do you love your subject area? Do you love what you want to teach? And do you want to ignite the flame of that love in your students? So we look at the statement of purpose, and we want to figure out from that statement of purpose what it is that you would love about teaching. what your experience has been with youth, and that's why, as Debra said, those experiences can be gained now through various activities, but really everything counts. You know, if you've been big brother, big sister, or if you've done tutoring, or if you've worked at summer camp, or a church group, or anything that had contact with youngsters, we look at that. With, I guess, this particular pool of applicants, we probably should not worry about subject matter content knowledge. Although I have to say that it would be important for folks who, let's say, want to teach English, but have specialized in philosophy, just because I'm looking at Eamonn, to make sure that you refresh your knowledge of literature and kind of the text of high school English, and then, of course, history and we would love more Spanish teachers, please. Anybody Spanish? Oh, thank you. Will you apply now? I'm a formal language teacher, and it's like so important. So that of course, academic record, we look at that. I don't think GREs would be an issue or something like that. Letters of reference, three letters of reference, and then there are some hoops to jump through, which is a CBEST, which is a test that every applicant has to take. I don't even know. Basic, what is CBEST? Basic.
Competencies.
Basic, yes. It's really a kind of a interesting test that checks whether you can read and write, I think. My anecdote about it is that we had actually a Stanford undergraduate who failed it on his first take because he just could not believe that such silly questions can be asked, and so he was looking for, where's the trap? Where is it that I have to show how smart I am? But no, 10th grade, okay. And then the CSET, which is a California subject examination test that actually looks at content of the subject that you want to teach. And those tests, it would make a lot of sense to get them out of the way as soon as possible. But you can start the step year with about half of having passed half of the CSETs. So those are the application requirements. I think that what I think a program like H-STEP could bring, could have as a benefit, just like the undergraduate coterm, is that when you apply, you become part of the STEP community and have access to a lot of advising through that. So you can come and you can actually go and say, what more do you think I need? What should I prepare for? How can I prepare for this year in better ways? So that to me is a huge benefit of a program like that. Any other questions before I turn? Yes?
What's the current proportion of PhD to BA entrants for the program?
Well, last year we had one PhD in the sciences. This year we have, as I say, lots of masters and advanced degree people actually in the subject. As I said, 3 lawyers. We have someone who was on the PhD PhD track, but just was not happy and came to STEP and so graduated with a master's. But straight out of undergrad, if you ask me straight out of undergrad, I think it's maybe a little less than half maybe. Or so.
I'll just add that
Yeah.
a lot of these requirements, like the testing and everything, are outlined in the program descriptions up there, as well as on the very last 2 pages, local opportunities for working with young people, both including sort of campus-sponsored programs at the Haas Center and programs in San Francisco, summer programs. So, those would be, that would be a good resource if you're interested in trying to.
And if you are interested, I think that, and I saw the list, and thank you for that, but if you're interested, I think that it would make a lot of sense to come to STEP, and we could introduce you to some of the schools where STEP has a presence. And I think that would make sense. Yes?
I still kind of have my question about like what kind of training. So I've done like TA and teaching for like talented and gifted programs. And I have friends who have like worked in inner city schools, and it just sounds like they're 2 very different jobs. I have another friend who works in a private high school, and it sounds like she's basically like a little university professor designing her courses, working with very bright children. So I'm just curious, like in a year of training, I just imagine those are very different skill sets that you could learn as an educator. So
By law and by credentialing requirements, we have to place in public schools. So, although, and this is actually the California Commission on Teacher Credentialing, our accreditation agency, looked away when we said that we do place at Eastside Preparatory High School, which is an independent school. But all the kids are on scholarship, and they serve kids in East Palo Alto. So, legally, shouldn't have done. Indeed, we do place in public schools, and we also look for places that serve a range of students. We don't, and the schools don't want us, for example, to place student teachers in AP classes, or there are teachers at Sequoia that have international baccalaureate classes, so you can't place student teachers there. Our candidates choose to work even, in high schools like Los Altos High School, for example. They choose, and Wafferton, when we place there. They choose to work with the classrooms where, as I see it and as they see it, they are needed the most. And I think that our candidates can make a difference for kids who come to school underprepared and who do need
I think it's just important to know, so the STEP program is a credentialing program, and we think of this as tied to public school teaching.
You don't need a credential, right?
It's a lot, but there are private school options. Now the HSTEP program, which is in STEP, is an expensive training, relatively expensive training program. We're subsidizing it because we believe in that mission, but it's absolutely another option for people who wouldn't go through STEP to think about private high school teaching as an option. So we're we want to open up. I think the school is interested in opening up a conversation with the PhD students about just getting you to, explore what are you really interested in, what are the options, is, teaching in the university the sort of gold standard, or are you open to a bunch of other things? Do you, is it a plan B, is it a plan A and B and C together? And we want to open that up. And so somebody might take Pam and Jennifer's course and even work with a Haas Center and then decide they're not interested in going the STEP route, but they want to, but this has turned them on and they want to teach philosophy in a private high school. And philosophy is an option in a private high school that it's probably hard to teach, unfortunately, since I'm also a philosopher. I would like there to be philosophy in the public high schools, but there isn't in general, and so that's less of an option. So this is, STEP is only one piece of opening up, but it's a piece the university is getting behind because we are committed to the idea of really raising the profile of public teaching in this country, public high school teaching. I think it's really important.
So, Danny, I'd like to ask you this question. What made you choose STEP?
So as Rachel was saying, I did undergrad here and graduated in 2007 with a BA in history, and then started STEP a week later. And my junior year, thanks to AP credits from high school, my junior year I was able to stop out and go abroad, but not through Stanford, and I wound up teaching in Costa Rica. And in this tiny little town, I taught 4th through 6th grade, so that, one of the first decisions I made was that I did not want to teach that age group. My fiance teaches 7th graders, and I don't know how. But it's
Really well.
She does. Yeah.
Really well.
Yeah, she does. And I should mention that my mom is a teacher and a supervisor in the Teacher Education Program back in Chicago, so I probably chose this in utero. I think that was in my personal statement of purpose for STEM. But anyway, I actually got really interested in administration when I was down there and in teaching. And I think I applied to STEP from there because it was my junior year, and I remember having this conversation with you about how I wanted to go to STEP because I wanted to be an administrator, and you shot that down very quickly. And I just...
But politely.
Yes. And I had a tough... I learned a lot in my student teaching placement, but when I got to it was tough at times, and when I got to Sequoia was when I really fell in love with teaching, and I'm not that interested in administration anymore. I just love this job, and that's mostly because at Sequoia, as Rachel mentioned, there's so many other STEP graduates, and it really feels like a family, to use a touchy-feely term. But I was just welcomed, and there was so much support from these other teachers in my department who went to STEP or who didn't, and the kids are wonderful. And so I guess I didn't totally answer your question about how I chose STEP. But I was, to be honest, I was 20, and I was young and pretty immature, and I applied and got in, and that's what I did right after college. At the time, as I said, because I was very interested in administration, because I worked in this tiny little village where there was no structure to get anything done. There were just teachers, but if something needed to be built or fixed, there was nothing. There was no structure. So that was my roundabout way of
What do
explaining.
you teach?
I teach history.
And what levels or grades?
I've taught, right now I teach in the International Baccalaureate program, and I also teach, so that's seniors. I also have one section of U.S. History juniors, but my student teacher from STEP, and I have my 3rd this year, so it comes back around. It's pretty much already, is taking over very soon. And I also teach AVID, which is a prep, which is a sort of like a homeroom or advisory program for students who will be first-generation college students, hopefully. And you loop with them, and I've been with them for 4 years. They're seniors. I walked in a little bit late today because a couple of them are having problems with fee waivers for the CSU system, so I have 3 pretty different preps. So this year I have mostly upperclassmen. My first few years I had mostly underclassmen. I taught a lot.
And for me, well, I kind of always wanted to be a teacher, but kept checking it out at every turn because I knew, like, I watched my teachers, I saw how hard it was. So after college, I decided I really wanted to get some experience in doing something with it before I really decided, no, this is really for me, you know. So I ended up going to the Peace Corps in West Africa and Mauritania. And while I was there, I managed a young girls after-school center. So I was more of like the principal person, but also I dabbled a little bit in teaching. And after the Peace Corps, I said, I'm still not convinced, I still need more, you know? So I moved back to the East Coast to a very small private high school in Washington, D.C. And I taught at that school for 2 years, and that was like my first kind of full-time teaching experience in a high school. And, you know, to address the question of private schools, I really felt like I had the freedom to create and, you know, give them all these wonderful projects, but I still didn't, I was thinking, oh my God, there's so much I am missing, so much knowledge and skills of how to teach. And they're just, you know, humoring me because they're nice kids and they'll do whatever you tell them, they're very motivated, right? So I knew I'm missing so much and I need to get it somewhere. So I started looking around and I started looking at the top programs because for me it was really important to get a very rigorous academic experience. And
STEP, tell them where you did your undergrad?
Yeah, Princeton. STEP was really the only place that offered a master's in education in Spanish. Obviously that was really important for me. That's what I teach now. I teach Spanish 1 and Heritage 1 at Gateway High School. And I was like baffled and surprised, why don't all these other programs offer it? So moved across the country, came here, and that's one of the reasons why I chose STEP, and I really feel like it gave me everything that I was looking for.
So what did it give you? What are some of the, I'm going to ask you that question. So what are some of the enduring ideas and practices that you love from STEP that you use in your classroom?
So I think that, you know, aside from all the technical knowledge of how to grade, how to assess, how to build curriculum that's really engaging for students and that's meaningful and teaches them what they need to know at their level, I think that STEP is about dispositions and really questioning your assumptions that you've made about education. Because if all of you have made it up to here by now, I'm assuming, perhaps I'm wrong, but I'm making an assumption that you're really good at school. At least by now you are, you know? And our students at the high school, they're just not. Most, you know, they're learning. So questioning my assumptions about how do people learn? What does motivation even look like? What is motivation? I didn't know any of that before I came to STEP. I just assumed everyone was like me, right? What are the different, you know, causes and effects of behaviors? Because a classroom environment is a complex system. You can't just assign blame here, assign blame there. It's very complex. What's going on? It's social, it's emotional, and it's cognitive all the time. 100% of the time, every single day. It's really, really difficult. And so basically what STEP gave me was a base in all those skills that I did need to teach and also those dispositions so that, you know, every day I know what questions to ask of students and to ask of myself to know whether they're actually learning. And if I don't have the answer, I know where I can start looking for the answers. So I keep all my binders, you know, on my shelf because I know, oh God, this is an assessment question. I'm gonna go look at my assessment class, or this is a classroom management question. And also there's, at the school where I teach, I work very closely with my best friend from STEP. We both teach Spanish. And so I can always go bounce ideas off of her and ask her questions, so it's really great.
What did STEP give me?
Well, that you still use.
That I still use. So one of the things, there's not much that I don't still use. One of the things is the curriculum and instruction course, which you take three of the four quarters, and you hit the ground running for an intensive week, 2 weeks in the summer, creates this sort of network of history teachers or language teachers or math teachers, whatever subject, it's divided by subject obviously, who have gone through very similar training. I mean, it changes a little bit year to year, who are familiar with sort of foundational lessons and ways of teaching and resources. And this network it's created, and especially in being a cooperating teacher the last 3 years brings me back into that network quite a bit, is this unbelievable trove of lessons and of ideas and primary sources and ways to teach. You know, we traded, everybody has to, in all the CNI courses, I think, everybody has to make a month-long unit, to design a month-long unit in winter quarter. It's what I considered sort of the master's thesis. And we traded those, and so I got 15 or 20 or however many there were, you know, we traded them around digitally, and now I have access to ones from all these different years, and it gets to the point where on my Dropbox now, I don't know what originated where or in what year, and everybody's sort of, oh, the Lincoln structured academic controversy, like everybody knows these sort of foundational lessons, and it's just, I don't have to, not only do I not have to reinvent the wheel, but what I have access to in terms of lessons. Okay, I need to teach American imperialism around, you know, Spanish-American War, for instance. I have so many, I have this like Cheesecake Factory size menu to choose from. It's incredible, and of course I can tweak it and do what I want with it. Another thing is a focus on literacy and on reading and writing. One of the first things I remember from STEP and sort of realizing that this was what STEP was about was, I think it was Sam Weinberg, the professor of curriculum and instruction for history. One of the first things he said to us is that we're all teachers, that history teachers are teachers of reading and writing, that we are all teachers of reading and writing. And especially this year in this sort of wild west of in between the content standards and moving towards Common Core, that I can focus so much on reading and writing because I have students who are reading and writing below grade level, not in my IB classes as much, but in my mainstream US history for sure, and they need more than just their English class to get, you know, the juniors, they're applying to college next year, they're taking the SAT this year, and I have a skill set from STEP with which to teach those using history content. And so it's amazing. My tests this year are all writing for the most part. I don't have to do multiple choice that much anymore. So yeah, I would say the focus on literacy and just everything that CNI gave us.
I want to add to what Danny just said, because one of the messages I think that we convey to the candidates is that yes, you teach history or mathematics, biology, or whatever, and also not only are you also a literacy teacher, but you're also a language teacher, because in the classrooms that you have are kids whose proficiency in oral and written English might be way below grade level. Our classrooms, our schools are have very significant proportions of English language learners. So how do you develop language and promote language development in addition to the mastery of the content? So the idea that I'm going to teach mathematics, I'm going to teach history, like Danny said, is there, yes. And also, you're going to teach language and you're going to teach literacy.
I should also say that STEP taught me work-life balance from the get-go, and I know that's an issue in many professions, and teaching it's a wonderful issue too, because the work doesn't exactly pay, you know, millions. But like STEP was really fun, and I mean, you know, I'm marrying someone that in next summer that I met in STEP, and I'm going to the Oregon game tomorrow with a bunch of friends that I met in STEP, and we've remained very close. And they're like I said, this network, and I've never felt alone in this profession, at work, outside of work. I'm just surrounded by STEP graduates in my life, and part of that is staying here, and some have moved elsewhere in the country or in the world. But people to bounce things off of, whether it's content ideas or, I have the worst day and the students drive me crazy. So that's really important.